The tow truck arrived at 7:12 on a Saturday morning, and I knew something was wrong the second I saw it turn into my driveway. I was standing inside my kitchen with a mug of coffee when the truck stopped beside my car. My black SUV was parked exactly where I had left it the night before, inside my own driveway, behind my own mailbox. There was no warning, no knock on the door, no phone call. Then a woman in a bright HOA vest stepped out of the passenger side. Karen Whitmore, our HOA president. She walked toward my SUV like she had personally bought it. I put my coffee down and stepped outside. Karen, what are you doing? She didn't even look at me. Instead, she pointed toward my windshield. That's the vehicle. Take it. The tow driver hesitated. I stared at him. Take it where? Karen finally turned toward me with a small smile. To the impound lot. I looked at my car, then back at her. Why? She held up a printed paper. Abuse of visitor parking privileges. For a second, I actually laughed because I thought she was joking. My car is in my driveway. Her smile disappeared. You've already been warned. No, I haven't. You received the notice. When? Yesterday. I shook my head. I didn't receive anything. Karen stepped closer and lowered her voice. That's not my problem. That was when I noticed the orange sticker on my windshield. It wasn't an official police notice. It wasn't from the city. It had the HOA logo at the top and one sentence printed in bold. Vehicle subject to immediate towing, HO. My stomach tightened. Karen, you can't tow my car from my private driveway? She tilted her head. Actually, I can. No, you can't. The tow driver looked uncomfortable. Karen snapped at him. Start the hook. The man walked toward my SUV. I moved in front of him. Don't touch my vehicle. Karen immediately pulled out her phone. Oh, good. You're making this easy? I stared at her. What does that mean? She began recording. Homeowner is refusing lawful HOA. Enforcement and interfering. With a contracted tow. I almost couldn't believe what I was hearing. Lawful? Karen's eyes narrowed. You signed the HOA agreement. I signed an agreement to follow the community rules. I didn't sign away ownership of my car. Her face changed for just a second. It was tiny, but I saw it. She didn't like that answer. Then she said something that made the entire situation feel much bigger. You should have thought about that before you started abusing visitor passes. I frowned. What visitor pass? Karen reached into a folder and pulled out a photograph. It showed my SUV parked near the clubhouse. Underneath the picture was a visitor parking permit number. I looked at it carefully. That was my vehicle. But something was wrong. That isn't my visitor pass. Karen laughed. Of course it is. No, look at the number. She stopped. I pointed at the paper. My visitor pass number is 1842. That's 1482. The tow driver looked over. Karen quickly folded the photograph. That's an administrative issue. An administrative issue you're using to tow my car? You've been warned repeatedly. By who? By the HOA, which means you. Her jaw tightened. For the first time, the confidence in her voice cracked. You don't get to question every decision the board makes. I do when you're taking my car. Karen stepped closer. You have no idea how much trouble you're causing yourself. I looked at the tow truck. Then tell him to leave. She shook her head. No, that one word changed everything. The tow driver started attaching the chains. I stepped toward him. Sir, I am the registered owner. You don't have permission to take this vehicle. He stopped. Karen immediately said, The HOA has authorization. I turned toward her. Show me. She blinked. What? Show me the authorization. Her face went still. I continued. Not the HOA notice. Not your printed warning. Show me the document that gives you permission to remove my vehicle from my private driveway. Karen stared at me for several seconds. Then she smiled again. You're going to regret making this difficult. She made another call. I expected her to call the towing company. Instead, she said, Yes, this is Karen Whitmore. I need police assistance with a non-compliant homeowner. My eyebrows went up. You're calling the police? You're interfering with an authorized tow. I stepped back. Fine, call them. Karen looked surprised. Maybe she expected me to panic. I didn't, because there was one thing Karen didn't know, and I wasn't going to tell her yet. The police arrived about 10 minutes later. 2 officers got out of the cruiser. Karen rushed toward them before they even reached my driveway. She pointed at me and started talking fast. He has refused multiple HOA orders. He's blocking a lawful tow, and he's become aggressive with our contractor. I almost laughed. I haven't touched anybody. One officer raised a hand. Sir, let's keep this calm. I'm calm. Karen immediately added, he has also been abusing visitor parking permits for months? The officer looked at me. Is that true? No. Karen pulled out her folder. I have records. The officer looked at the papers. Then he looked at my SUV, then at my driveway. Where exactly was this vehicle parked when the violation happened? Karen answered quickly. In visitor parking? The officer nodded. And where is it now? In his driveway. The officer looked at her. So you're towing it from his private driveway because of a previous parking violation? Karen's face tightened. It's an HOA enforcement matter. The officer didn't respond. I could see the tow driver quietly stepping away from the truck. Then Karen said the sentence. That made me realize she had made a much bigger mistake than towing my car. Officer, the homeowner doesn't have authority to refuse because this entire property is governed by the HOA. I looked at her. There was the lie, and she had said it in front of 2 police officers. I slowly reached into my pocket. Karen noticed. What are you doing? Getting something. She looked at the officers. See, this is exactly what I've been dealing with. I pulled out my phone. But I didn't show her the screen. Instead, I looked directly at the officer. Officer, before anyone touches my car, I'd like you to see something. Karen stepped forward. No, whatever he has is irrelevant. I turned my phone around. The screen showed the recorded property survey from the county. The officer leaned closer. Karen didn't. She was watching my face. Then I said quietly, There's one problem with your HOA, Karen. She crossed her arms. What problem? I looked at my driveway. Then at the HOA sign across the street. Then back at her. My property isn't inside the HOA boundary. Karen's expression froze. The tow driver stopped moving. Even the officer looked surprised. Karen stared at me as if I'd just spoken another language. That is impossible. I held up the phone. Then you should probably explain why your own HOA map says the same thing. Her eyes dropped to the screen. For the first time that morning, Karen Whitmore had nothing to say. But I wasn't finished, because the map wasn't the only thing I had found. And the next document on my phone was the reason I had stayed calm while she tried to take my car. I looked at Karen and said, You really should have checked who owned this property before you called the police. Her face went pale, and that's when I realized Karen hadn't just made a mistake. She had walked into a trap she didn't even know existed. You can tow my car, but you can't tow away the truth. The officer looked at the document on my phone again. Sir, this county record shows your property is outside the HOA boundary. Exactly. Karen stepped forward. That map is outdated. I looked at her. Then why did you use it to collect dues from me for 3 years? Her mouth opened, but no answer came. The second officer took the phone from his partner and studied the property lines. Karen suddenly became defensive. Look, there may be a paperwork issue, but that doesn't change the fact that he abused a visitor pass. I asked, which visitor pass? She held up her folder. The one registered to your address. I took out my own records. Funny, because that pass belongs to my brother. Karen frowned. Your brother? Yes, he visited me 6 months ago. I gave him a visitor pass because I thought I was required to. The officer looked at Karen. So the vehicle violation you're talking about belongs to a visitor? Karen nodded. Yes, I smiled. Then why are you towing my personal vehicle? Karen's face tightened. Because the visitor pass was connected to his address? Then you should have fined the visitor vehicle. Not mine? The tow driver slowly lowered the equipment. Karen noticed. Don't you dare leave? The driver looked at the police officer. Ma'am, I'm not towing a vehicle. When the property owner disputes the order and the boundary is in question. Karen turned red. You were hired by the HOA, and I'm not interested in getting sued over a car. That was the first moment Karen truly lost control. She pointed at me. You planned this. I stared at her. Planned what? This whole thing. I shook my head. You came to my house at 7 in the morning with a tow truck? The officer stepped between us. Ma'am, lower your voice. Karen stopped. Then something strange happened. Her phone rang. She looked at the screen and walked several feet away. I couldn't hear everything she said, but I caught enough. What do you mean the records don't match? She turned her back toward us. No, I already told them the property is covered. There was a pause. Then she whispered something that made my stomach drop. Who changed the county filing? I looked at the officer. He had heard it too. Karen ended the call and turned around. I asked, who changed what? None of your business. The officer immediately said, actually, if this involves property records and an HOA enforcement action, it may become our business. Karen's face changed. She suddenly wanted to leave. But I wasn't letting the morning end with just a canceled tow. For months, Karen had acted like the HOA owned every inch of our neighborhood. She sent fines. She threatened homeowners. She demanded access to properties. She had even told one elderly neighbor that his grandchildren couldn't stay overnight because they weren't registered visitors. Now I wanted to know where she got that power. I opened the folder I had kept in my house.